Good morning, everybody. As I said, my name is Dapo Shali, and I'd like to thank you for making the time to be here. I can see that there's still a few more people who've RSVP'd who are still logging on, but they can find us going. Before we start, I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping. So this is the second of 4 workshops under this project. The first one was how to pitch an investigative story idea successfully. That was hosted by Danielle, whom you've all met at the stage. And that was on the 15th of January. That is available on our YouTube channel if you haven't seen it yet. Today, the topic of our workshop is safety and security, online safety and security, specifically for those of you who have been contracted by this project, but anybody who might need this information later. We are also going to record this, so just so you know, this is a recorded session, and we're also going to put it on our YouTube channel later, probably by the end of the week. Desmond has actually, he's happy to take your questions as we go along, and he's waving hello. So you can put your questions in the chat if you would like to, if you'd like them to be addressed at the end of the presentation, but it is a very technical presentation. So if you would like to ask any questions while he is still proceeding, please raise your hand. I will be monitoring the screen, and I'll just make sure that you are attended to. With that said, I'm going to hand over to Anton to tell you why online safety is important. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dapo Shali, and welcome to everyone. It's great to see you here. Many of you we've interacted with on email, but it's great to have us in the same virtual room. Let me just tell you that our project under the Henry Nxumalo Foundation with our partners Viewfinder and Oxpeckers, the Southern African Accountability Journalism Project, is really taking off very nicely. This is our second training. We've contracted, I think, 14 journalists who are working on stories across a number of Southern African countries, and I think doing some very interesting and promising work. So we are really excited about how things are going, and pleased to see you here today. On what Dapo Shali said, I would add that obviously some security issues you need discretion. So if you need to talk to Desmond one-on-one using secure channels after this, please just indicate to us and him, and we'll arrange for that to take place. Look, we're doing this one, and we're doing it early in our program because clearly your safety as working journalists is of paramount importance. We know that recently the risks for journalists have gone up considerably in many places. And I think it's our duty to make sure that we're assessing the risk, taking whatever steps we can to ensure that you are as safe as possible, to give you support when you're not safe, and of course to give you training to try and ensure you're taking the right steps to ensure your safety. And that your personal safety and the safety of your data, your communications, and everything related to that in particular. So that is why we're here today. And I thank you for taking the time and trouble to join us. And a very special thanks to Des. Des has done training with me and us in various ways a number of times. So we thank him for joining us today, and I'll hand over to him.
Thanks, Anton. It's really an honor to be here with such an august group of journalists. I've had a look at those who are on the list, and obviously there's some highly experienced people in the room who go back some decades, some of you in the job of journalism and investigation. So I'm honored to be here to chat to you. Just a little background. I've been training journalists around the world in online security since the 90s, basically, and my own teams. I'm a code writer who ran a mobile phone apps company for 10 years. And basically, technology has intersected my life from the 80s when we used the first computers in newsrooms. And I've just been fascinated by digital and especially mobile for most of my life now. So that's my broad background. As we go along, we'll chat more about specific things. And I know there's going to be a lot of input from individuals. So as we go along and you feel like Wendabe has said, if you want to interject and say something, what we don't want is a debate. We're not here to debate things. You'll see once we start the rolling on the little program I've got, that you'll have questions. Please do ask them. There's some things that are just given, and I'll explain to you. And if you're dissatisfied by that, you can come back to me individually. I'll give you more proof. We just don't have time to sift through everything that I'm going to tell you to prove some of the things I'm going to say to you. I'm quite happy to do that, but I don't have time to go through each one and filter it and so on. I'll give you sources and I'll explain to you some of the things that have happened. So I'm just going to open up my little security presentation. Hopefully you can all see that. Yes, it's online security. That's what the brief is, to talk about digital security. And I mean, there's some bad news. It's all about risk and risk components. And since I started doing this, the intersection of digital has become much easier for bad players, from nation state level all the way down to organized crime. And a device, for example, that used to be able to intersect mobile phone calls cost around $1 million. You can buy it now. It's about the size of a suitcase. You can buy it now for 100,000 Rand. So those kind of pieces of hardware are drifting around the world at the moment. And if you believe or think that you're safe when you use certain kind of encryption and so on, you basically aren't, depending on your risk. So for most of us, we don't get into a situation where we're in danger. So I've looked at your risk analysis and I've gone through the sheets that I got, I think 4 or 5 examples. I read it carefully and I went through the risk associated with that. And each one of us on this call has a different risk level. So you need to analyze that carefully. As soon as you go into organized crime at a high level, such as at least one of you on this call is involved in investigating high-level crime and syndicates operating inside Johannesburg, for example. As soon as you go to that level, you have to understand that obviously your risk is high. If it's nation states, and there's at least another one of you on the call who's involved in things that could be cross-border and involve nation state security, it's even worse. Some of the most powerful pieces of software floating around the world now have been sold by an Israeli company called NSO. And it's very easy to infect phones with the software, and then all the entire phone is basically open to scrutiny by bad players. So, and that's before you get in a situation of individuals sitting in mobile phone server rooms, which is where security at nation state level sometimes demands. So your SMSs could be intercepted inside the server room. So you have to start from analyzing your own personal risk. If you're doing an investigation into how youth are being treated down the road at a hospital, that's a very different security level risk than being in a situation where some spook could actually be alerted to or have attention, because you're going to bring down half of the state because you're about to break a big story about high-level corruption. At that level, you've got to start really thinking and planning. So we're going to have a look at outlining of the digital and then the personal. Part of this training, it is online training, but a lot of it incorporates real world. So it intersects with what we're doing as individuals. Again, it's a changed world to some extent, but also not. So things that I was dealing with during the apartheid era and afterwards, in terms of personal security, we still deal with. There's more chaos, perhaps, but there's still the same kind of things that you're doing. And what worked well in 1989, 90, and so on, works well in 2025 and 26, 2025, 2026. The same things are applying. The technology is not the saving grace here. So when we look at digital, there's 3 main things that we always analyze. So one is how to protect our information. Secondly, how to protect the people that are giving us information. And thirdly, what methods can we employ? That's correct in terms of those other two items. So, I mean, when you manage risk in your daily life, you and I, if you live in South Africa or any other developing nation, you're going to have different levels of risk than, say, for example, some of the journalists I was working with who were in Syria and were part of investigative journalists operating in Syria as women during the civil war against Assad regime. Clearly, those levels are different, but the same kind of rules start being deployed. So the important thing to stress from here on is that the problem that I'm having a lot of the time is I'm speaking to people who are half my age, and they're very used to using these things, and they are applying the principle that they are not really known because it's an alienating device. The phone itself it's a thing, and it places something between you and the person picking up the message, so to speak. So you feel inured and you feel secured by the fact that two things. One is that you're talking through a device that is not linked anywhere, that has a psychological effect on you. The second thing is that you don't know, most of us don't know exactly how this works. So you have a confusion ethos that takes place about people who believe what they're hearing about security online and so on. So I want to stress to you that when you protect files, everything in your life is going to involve difficulty from here on. If you want to be safer online, it's going to involve difficulty. You have to add patience into your equation. And the unfortunate thing is, because of this, we are so ready to just click buttons and move fast and talk and use our apps and our platforms to quickly talk back and forth and to share. And it's all high speed stuff. What we have to do on this call as investigative journalists is we have to pull back and we have to plan and we have to slow down. So that's the bad news, that everyone on this call who wants to be safer now, you have to do these things. I'm going to ask you, plead with you to do them, because it's going to make you safer and your sources safer, and your information safer. So for those three reasons that I started off, you have to set up two-factor encryption. We don't have enough time for me to go through everything. Open file, click write file, do this now. You're adults, you have YouTube, go to YouTube and say two-factor encryption, set it up on everything that's critical. Your bank does it, by the way, automatically if you have banking app on your phone. That's two-factor encryption. Before something acts digitally, it asks you through a separate communication medium to confirm who you are. Unfortunately, every time you log off and log on to some of these things, it's going to ask you for an authenticator. So you're going to have to download an authenticator. And what that does is it works in conjunction with your platform. And when you open whatever app or platform that you're looking at, and you haven't been to it on the device that you're using, it's a new device, it will ask you to confirm who you are. But that's going to save you from hacking attacks. About half of the hacking attacks that you're going to face will not work if you do that simple thing. Simple to do, wastes time. Some of the journalists I've trained over the years, they admit to me later that they didn't set up the two-factor, because every time you go to Gmail on a new device, you have to prove who you are. It sends you an SMS, or it sends you a number that you have to open your authenticator and you type the number in and so on. And that slows things down. So if you think of, from now on, all your critical things, your email, your all the apps that have your identity in it, such as WhatsApp, Facebook, X, all the app platforms that you're using that have your identity, that you know that if someone hacks it, you could be in a spot of bother just because of messaging. Someone could seize your account and, you know, destroy your good name or shut you down and hold you to ransom, basically. It's almost impossible for them to do that with two-factor encryption. And I'm always amazed that people who are serious journalists, serious people with long titles, and you know, have won various awards as being brilliant, don't have the patience to set up two-factor encryption. So I'm not going to ask on this call who has to do, who hasn't. So this is not for me to do that. It's to tell you, you have to do it. Okay, please. Everything that has your identity wound up in it, you will use two-factor encryption. LinkedIn, Facebook, X, WhatsApp, ChatGPT, whatever app that you have that is really important for you to use and has your identity in it set up. I don't have two-factor encryption in some of my platforms. So I'm not going to announce what they are, but there's some that I use that are lightweight or not really intrinsic to me, and I just take the chance. Some of them have been hacked and my password's been stolen, but I'm still here, and touch wood, no one has stolen the money out of my bank account yet. So two-factor encryption saves you. Once you start getting used to slowing down, putting the number into the authenticator, your happiness quotient goes up, because it's very difficult to hack you after that. Okay, so the important thing is Gmail, because Gmail is very porous, and because everything is coming through on emails, and we'll get to that in a minute. The second thing we're going to look at is email systems, and 75% and more, depending on where you are, 75% of phishing and hacking attacks take place through the old-fashioned steam-driven email systems. The vast majority around the world, and these are big, big hacks. Sometimes shut down entire countries' water supply or knocks out the power system. That hack, most of those phishing attacks come through email, believe it or not. One of the oldest technologies we have in front of us. And it's the most dangerous thing because of how email systems and computers work. There are no such thing as set numbers in the world. So our IP addresses are repeatable. So unlike your telephone, this number in my phone here is the only number in the world that has this number on it. And if you look at your phone, there's no other number, telephone number in the world that has your number because of how systems work. But that's not the same with computers and servers. Servers share IP addresses. So someone can spoof. They can pretend to be someone else. It's quite hard to do that with mobiles. And email is the place where it all goes down. So we look at a little bit about how to improve our analysis of email. Password protection. All files that you're going to use in the future, you have to password protect. And I've got a big document I'll share with you after this. Again, I'm not going to go through each filing system because people have got they've got Macs and they've got PCs, and many people are just using phones. But you'll learn how to password protect the relevant files. If you go through the document I'm going to send you, it's a 40 or 50 page thing, and it goes A, B, C, D, E, click here, click, click, click. And you can password protect your files. You can also hide your files on your computer and actually physically hide them. The problem with that is someone gets hold of your computer and knows your password. It's useless. They can find your files. But that's 2 layers there. It's a hidden file plus it's a password that you've got to get into. Then password protecting your relevant file as well. That's another layer. So you can start seeing you're building things that slow you down and creates a problem for you. So think of it as you are the city. Someone's trying to attack the city, and you keep building your defenses further and further away from you around the city wall. A lot of security experts believe in partitioning drives. That is quite a technical thing. So I won't spend too much time on it, but a partitioning of a drive is useful if you want to hide. If you have a drive that's a terabyte or 500 gigs, you can take a little slither of it, a portion of it, and hide it as a partition and put your important files in that. But experts who know these things look straight away for partition drives because they know inside there, it's like the safe in the house. They go looking for the partition drive. So, but if you're clever about it and you have a 500 gig storage capacity in your computer and you use 100 megs to partition, and you put just basic documents in there that are a few kilobytes, you can see that's quite a clever thing to do. So partitioning works, but only in certain circumstances. The big thing is non-connected devices. And I've met journalists who use computers where they've removed the Wi-Fi and the internet chips out of the computer. So you can, and I'll explain this more when we get to that section, but you can go to computer experts and get them to remove some of the chip components. And then you can do a lot of your work onto that device, and it's kind of safe because no one can access it. It's just not accessible in any way at any time. The downside again is that you've got to repeat things, and it leads to the 7th thing, which is the external drive. A lot of people take these drives and plug it into the computer. It gets a piece of malware on it, and then they plug it into the external drive, and the bug is now inside that computer. The problem for a hacker is 90% or more actually of the hacks, the people who are trying to do this rely on the fact that they put a bit of code into your computer and then wake it up, or it wakes up when you do something, and then it tells someone on the internet that you're away, that this is the computer that's now been infected. So if you have an external non-connected device, it just doesn't work for them. But what they can do is they can, if you're in nation state level or you're doing something that's serious, they can infect your device and cause it to crash, and you lose all your data. So but that's a long shot. That's very difficult to do. And, you know, you need quite a few hackers working together to get that kind of thing right. The idiots who are in Belarus or in Lagos or wherever they are doing this, or Odessa, they rely on us ease of use. So rely on us having a connected device to do this. So a clever thing to do is to think of a computer that you can spare, can be an old steam-driven thing, and just take the Wi-Fi chip out and everything out. So it's just a word processor, like a typewriter. And then you can store your important stuff there. You can back it up by using an external drive with some tips I'll get to there. And then, of course, the most important one, I think, and I've used this for many years, and it really works well, but you've got to have a mental obsession to do this, folks, is you create false trails. On that document I'm going to send you, you can create an entire false person. And I know a lot of editors frown on that. And in terms of journalism ethic, there are some people who, you know, they say, I'm doing something for the good of society, I'm not going to hire, and so on. But I think that's rather naive, because it's a bit of an arms race out there. So these people really do want to get to you when you get to a certain level of risk. So you must create false trails, including false people. So what happens is, if you have many questions, you need many answers. But you have one question or two questions, that's one source or two sources, then there's only one or two answers. It's very dangerous. So if you can create false sources, you don't use them in your story, but you create them as if they exist. The smoke that creates and the problems for someone tracking you, because they have to go down this little wormhole now and find out, is this true or not? You don't want to become paranoid, but you need to know the realities here. False trails are very exciting to use because they really do work. And through this session, I'll explain some more about that. So turn on two-factor encryption. PayPal has an automatic two-factor encryption built into it. Why? Because it's dealing with your credit card and money like your bank. So you should think about all your identities and begin deploying two-factor encryption. If you don't know how to, just go and search YouTube. But each one of these systems I've got linked on this presentation, and others that you may be using, have two-factor encryption. If a platform does not have it and is asking you and accessing your private information, don't use it. Because if someone hacks into that, they may indirectly get to your dog's name and therefore indirectly to your password or whatever it is. So you should start immediately with that. The second thing is, if any of you want to chat about some of the other techniques that I use that I don't speak about publicly for obvious reasons, is you can contact me and we talk on Signal. Signal is a peer-to-peer app-based system that is not hacked. It has not been hacked by NSO and Pegasus. It's very hard to hack Signal. So don't use Telegram. Telegram is weak in comparison. Signal is the way to go. It's free. And I'm sure everyone on this call has experienced Signal or has been using it, but get used to using Signal. Signal for us in the business is the go-to, because it's for bad players, it's very hard for them to get to you. But you create the false trail by continuing to use WhatsApp. So this is where we're talking now about the next level of how we deal with ourselves as investigative journalists, thinking people that are dangerous to power. And the more danger you are to power, the more danger you are in. So you start creating an entire false narrative about your whereabouts using public accessible WhatsApp and other forms. And then you create a whole separate way in which only you and one other, preferably your editor, no one else, one other, knows this other side. And often even the editor won't want to know. So it's just you. And then you're into a place where you're going to be much safer. And it does take time and effort. So an email, for example, the 75% generally around the world, but some places higher. It starts with someone attaching a PDF or a link into an email. And the folks doing this have got very good at it. They make these emails look exactly like the company. In the past, that you could see that the logo was slightly pixelated, maybe slightly skew. Now they even have taken IP addresses and they've created similar names. So it's firstnationalbank.co.za or something. And it's very hard for an average person to accept that this email they've received is not valid. The way I work is the other way around. I work on the logic that says, and I will never win a lottery that I don't enter. So if anything comes to me that uses that logic, there's something wrong with it. So I start from that and then I work backwards. So what do you do when you get an email that comes in and you think, someone says, I'm trying to reach out to you, I've got really important information. My name is blah, blah. So the first thing I do is I go, obviously as a journalist, I go research them. Who is this? What are they talking about? Second thing that you do is you get off the WhatsApps and so on, and you use old-fashioned phone calls. You say, okay, I'm going to give you a phone. Can I phone you? And that's normally where this world of ours starts falling apart, because the person who's trying to attack you very seldom will agree to a phone call. So they may, but they very seldom do. So the rule is the email system, regarded as like your post box in your house. Someone's sending you post. So you know who the post is coming from when it's granny and when it's your editor and when it's the people you know. When it's people you don't know, it's like someone's stuffing something in your post box. Don't touch it. That's the rule. Don't open it. Don't click on the links. Never, ever click on an attachment to anything unless you know exactly who it's from. If you don't know who it's from, do not open it. That's the rule. It's the other way around for most people. They go, oh, this is quite interesting. Let me have a look. But because we're curious, we're not stupid. So you and I, the principle is we do not open any emails from anyone we do not know. Can you see that now places you in a bit of a problem? Because you have to remember this every time you use email. Delete everything. If it's really crucial, someone will phone you. You are not going to win a trip somewhere or anything that you didn't enter. You are not going to get lucky anyway. No one's going to feed you information by email that's important. They will phone you, or they'll get hold of you directly somehow if they think it's life and death. So wait for them to get hold of you directly. You're not missing anything by not opening that email. Do not open it. Yes, maybe 2 to 5% of those emails may be something that is real. Then if the person really wants you to know something, they will contact you in another method. You didn't answer my email. I'm trying to get hold of you about something. They phone you. Don't feel bad, because most of the time that email coming in is not doing that. It's trying to get you to click on a link, and then it could be just nefarious criminal living somewhere in the world who's trying to steal your credit card number. It's pretty much most of the time what's going on. So that's the phishing attack. Ransomware is something different, but it's taken off in South Africa, and many companies have been caught by it and around the world, but individuals are starting to be caught, where someone seizes your digital content and then demands a payment of some sort. There's so-called man-in-the-middle attacks. Sorry, that's how it's called. It's M attacks, which is normally linked to cloud. So someone intersects information that you feed into WordPress or whatever, and whatever cloud-based app you're using. Office 365 was hit by this terribly 18 months ago. Man-in-the-middle attack, and then they managed to get hold of data. So that doesn't really affect us directly, but be aware of it. So at the moment, I'm dealing with something where a couple of my passwords have been hacked on a man-in-the-middle attack. I'm part of like a 200 million password theft. I'm not paranoid about it because there's nothing in there they can get to. My passwords doesn't matter, you know what I mean? So most of the time, man-in-the-middle attacks don't affect us. They affect your organization. Malware, which is similar to phishing, where someone will drop something into the insider threat, where it's linked to email, where often the head of IT or someone involved with the IT side, a pathetic person there with sitting behind their computers and always being shouted at. by the rest of the folks. They get this note from a pretty person from Russia saying, I love you. And the insider threat is they then expose the whole organization. That's linked to social engineering as well, where someone, you on some dating app and they start asking you questions, and then for these people figure out your name, and then they start talking about your cousins, and you give them a lot of information which you shouldn't really be giving semi-strangers that you've been speaking to for a week on a dating app. They're still a stranger, and that's social engineering. So that's the main ways that it's working at the moment. And most of those are pretty old school. They just happen to be using new methods and new technology. The thing that's really kind of infuriating, really, is that we're allowing ourselves to do this because we're not thinking. So you have to be in the moment as a person working in our business all the time. You cannot switch off and just be flicking through something like you going through Instagram, flick, 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 flick. You can't be doing that as a thinking person. You've got to stop all the time. You've got to protect yourself. So you don't click on anything. You use search engines to check who's sending. You look out for the tone and content and patterns, and then you follow pre-existing rules with senders. So that's the one way that you can get around this, is you can say to people that, if you do send me an email, make sure you do the following. Use this word. So you have some kind of like trigger mechanism so that when you do get information that comes through from someone who wants to be semi-anonymous, that there's some kind of rule. Passwords. So this is another one, a bugbear of the world. It used to be that people said security that you should have many passwords. But then what happens after about 6 months is you start running out of passwords. So you start using passwords like Coffee365 or something. And so what we believe in the security fraternity now is that you have a couple of passwords. Firstly. Secondly, it's not a word, it's a phrase. So because we're lucky in South Africa, we speak multiple languages. So it'll be almost impossible for someone to figure out your password for most of us on this call. I speak 4 or 5 languages like you, and my passwords have multiple languages in them that are very unique to me, that are phrases. No one knows them, not my wife, not my mother. No one knows them, what they are, but I know it's unique to me. So you build these phrases. You build one main one for your bank, and 2, and another, and maybe a 3rd for the rest. And then when you hacked, or when the system is hacked, when the man in the cloud hacks, then you change that phrase. But I know that on the call here, there'd be people that are being told by their apps, do this. You can use a password creator, an automatic password creator. Mac is very good at it. That's why most of us use Macs. It's much more secure than Android and PCs because of how the operating system works. I was trained in Mac program design at Stanford University in 93, 94. And it was very clear that it's just a much more secure instrument because of how the software and the hardware work, how it's fused. It's like very tightly managed together, and it's made out of one factory, whereas PCs are, the operating systems are more exploitable. And that's just a fact. So you can argue with me. You can please send me a note and we'll discuss afterwards. But I'll explain to you in code terms why, but that's the truth. So we always, if you can, you always try and get an iPhone. I bought this secondhand. It's a 10. It's an old thing, but it works. And it does the job because it protects me at a higher level than Android phones. Android phones, if you switch off location, it switches itself back on. Android phones will still track you, whereas it's more difficult to track location on an iPhone for all sorts of technical reasons. But I'll get into that in a minute. So you need to make an oblique phrase. I am a Zulu warrior, and the add numbers, so the numbers replace the letters. So I is a 1 and so on. Everyone knows this trick. It's really good to use because it's very difficult to hack. Unless someone hard hacks you. In other words, they steal the actual password. But if they try and figure out what it is, which is most of the time what's going on, it's very difficult for them to get to it, your son's name +2 or something. So that's the rule now is 2 to 3 passwords that you don't need 15. And all you do, what I do a lot of the time, I get an automatic password generator that is stored in a keychain. And the only way someone is going to get to that is if they steal my computer. And then they have to steal my finger because it switches the computer on, and it's protected through another layer of passwords. So they have to steal the password for the computer. Then they have to try and figure out what the password is. You get the picture here. It's just, I'm in the city state and my security is 2 or 3 lines deep. Whereas using the old African story, my associate over here is running much slower away from the line. The line is going to eat him or her. Me, I'm just a little bit further down the line, a little quicker, the line's further back. So it buys you time the whole time doing these things. It takes time, but it buys you time and peace of mind. So to protect files, for example, you right-click on Macs, select locked, repeat. On PCs, you go to the file or folder, select properties, click advanced, and encrypt and apply. So that's Macs and PCs. Very, if you go through these through this little presentation, but I've got a much longer and more comprehensive one that I share with you. But just to show you, it's not rocket science here, and a lot of you on the call are doing that. So what some people I know do is they protect all their files. And I say to them, it's a mistake because you don't need to. What you do is you create red herrings. So you protect some files that don't need to be protected. So you right click and lock them. Then you right click and lock the ones that you do need to protect. But then you know that if someone hacks into your email system at work and your computer's on the Wi-Fi, it's going to be exposed to that hacker. So again, it doesn't matter what kind of clicks and things you've done there, the really good hackers will download your data and they'll actually get to that folder. They'll break into your protected file. It's like a safe. You've got a safe in your computer. Someone breaks into your house, steals your safe, breaks the safe open. That's what's going to happen in a digital way. So some kinds of information you just protect and you think it's not for public consumption, but it's not mission critical. That's the kind of material. You can also hide files. But as I said to you, there's a command inside all computers that if you shut a computer down open or shut some files down and say hide these files, you can get into a computer with a 3-finger command on a Mac, and it'll tell you which files have been hidden after you've got to put the password in. So you can see it all goes back to the password all the time. That double encryption, that protection. Slicing the drive, it's called, or partitioning the drive. I mentioned that I train in it, and I mention it because people do it, but I hardly ever do it. I far prefer taking the Wi-Fi chip out, or making sure the device I'm using is not accessible by any internet or Wi-Fi. Then you know you're safe. But if you partition, then it's stolen at the or someone at the Chinese embassy. You know, you fly to Beijing and you're very anti-China, they can haul you over. The first thing they do is they make you have to give your password to the folks there. They open up the computer, they see a partition drive, and the red flags come up. Because normal people don't partition drives like that. You know what I mean? So then you're really suspicious. So a lot of the time, you want it open. You want things clear. For those of you who are going to be cross-bordering into Zimbabwe, same thing applies. You know this, you have to have a clean social media. Delete your tweets. There's something called tweet delete. So you cleanse yourself, but you cannot be so cleansed that it's like driven snow. You're so pure. You have to have platforms so that normal people think that you're normal. So you've got to have WhatsApp and you've got to have Facebook account. You've got to have these X things. And then they say, but nothing in it must make any sense to someone who wants to use it for nefarious ends. So that's why I said to you, part of what we're talking about here is you create a layer, need to know, a layer where outwardly, I have all these things. I have an Instagram account. I share flying foxes flying around, and I do this, and I'm fishing at the beach and all those things. Most of what I'm actually really up to, you will not see on that. And a lot of the time, in terms of the layer of security, it's about time. So you're managing software, you're managing digital, and you're managing your time. So get out of the habit of talking live to people on any app. I'm sure most of you know this. Do not talk live on any app. Please get out of the habit. You're not a 15-year-old who needs to show off about which party you're going to. It's a need-to-know basis. No one needs to know where you are at this very minute, except your mother and your father and your brother and your sister and your granny and your best friend. The rest of the world, they don't need to know. So they don't need to know what you think about Palestine. They don't need to know what you think about the Israelis. They don't need to know what you think about anything. But you tell them stuff generally, okay, it's my birthday today, because everyone knows and stuff like that. So start building that into your life as a professional in terms of partitioning your drive and slicing your life. So you have the place that says, I'm normal. Everything else that's going on is off the non-connected device. It's not for information. It's not for you to know. It's for me and my editor, or just me, no one else. That's who the source is. No one knows. If something happens to me, then the source is safe. No one will ever know. You may want to, and we'll talk in a minute or two about some of the techniques you can use to back yourself up in that situation. But the clean data going in is the point of the non-connected device, where no one can hack that computer from any remote point except through the external drive. So normally what you do with the drive is you format it. And even then, not all the information is gone, by the way. There's a place in Midrand for about 4,000 Rand. We'll go, it's called SSD, who will take your drive and will find that information that you deleted. The only way you can truly get rid of it is if you factory reset the device. That skims everything off it. But your deleted files are always always accessible on PCs. On Macs, it's a bit more difficult to once you delete it, it's gone. So just be aware of that. So you need to factory reset devices. This device, when you think that someone has hacked it, the only safe thing to do, forget antivirus systems. I'm going to show you a couple, but forget them. They do not work with nation state level hacking. They just are useless. So, and people love them. And I'm just thinking the best thing to do is, unfortunately, remember your passwords, factory reset your phone, download your apps back onto it. Get those apps that you don't need off, go for the things that you really want. If you're going to cross a border, factory reset your phone. When you know there's information that may be lurking inside this thing, because they're going to make you unlock it. So you want to unlock it and say, yeah, yes, when you see my phone, you go for it. Because you know that you've cleaned everything. The sharing part of it, someone says, I've got a hard drive for you. So then you have a rule there, which is like the email rule. Okay, that hard drive does not go into my external non-connected computer. That goes into a computer that's probably going to, it'll tell me there's a virus on the thing. Often people share drives with docs and PDFs on them, and a high percentage of those are actually infected. Normally it's a redundant system. In other words, it's dormant rather, and it doesn't really matter. But the antiviral system picks up that there's a virus on the actual little drive. So don't share drives. It's like sharing your underwear. You don't share the drive with anyone. If someone sends you information, make sure that you keep it healthy by taking it through your own little antivirus, and you're present when that piece of information comes into it. When someone sends you a drive and says all the paperwork is there, unfortunately for them, what I normally say is, send me hard copy. Send it through Postnet. I'll pay for the insurance. It's $100 from Cape Town for 20 pages. You send me the spreadsheet. That's when I know no one's going to see it. That's when it's safe. And then I take that spreadsheet, I use AI, and I copy the material and I put it into the drive of the computer that's not connected to the internet. Safe, unless someone steals it from your house. You can see that the ease of use has destroyed our capacity to think clearly as thinking human beings about threats and risks. It makes no sense to me that you, around the world, but particularly where we live, you have these bad players who are leaping through windows and putting guns in your head at cars and so on. And then we clicking on emails. but we've got a handful of keys the size of a palm, and we've got 10 locks on our door. It makes no sense, does it? So unfortunately, we've got to knock ourselves in the head and go, okay. I have to now shift gear into this place and go, I'm now in a no-play zone. I'm not a baby anymore. I have to start slowing down, taking a breath, deleting more than opening. Remember what I said? Forget about it as an important thing. Here is a note from your bank. What do the banks do if you're in real trouble? They phone you. They don't send you an email. Delete it. Some people think they're clever and reply to it and say, oh, I'm going to have fun with this guy. In the early days of the internet, we all did something like that in the early thousands, 2003, 4, 5, that period. But very quickly, it becomes a waste of time. And, you're just wasting your own time. So just don't interact with these people. It's like someone coming to your car and saying, give me money, and you don't have any. You say, no, sorry, I'm leaving now. Delete. There is a company called Sophos, which many of you will know. It's one of the safer systems. They do have an office in South Africa, office or two. I've used them for my companies over the years. They're not cheap, but they are probably, I regard them, almost regard them as the best, with the proviso that if it's nation state, that won't work anyway. But if it's just normal criminals and stuff going after you, Sophos is very good to protect email and other things from bad players. And it works well on phones too. So you can have a look at Sophos. The false trails, it's now 10:02, so we're going along at high speed here. Creating false trails. This one I like a lot because but it needs planning. And also you need to have like an alter ego. And you need to really feel it that you need to do this. If you think that your investigative journalism is just not that dangerous and not that risky, you don't have to do this. Because it's a bit cloak and dagger. But if you are in a situation where someone may be wanting to get to you, you must do these things. So you create false trails. You create a need-to-know basis. So an example is you set up meetings that don't exist. So someone who you think, with people who don't exist. So you create a whole set of false people, emails, and you send them emails if you feel that you've been hacked. And have a meeting, I'll meet you at the so-and-so on this time, and you just don't pitch up there. You do that a few times. Your schedules, especially online, you need to change things around a lot. One of the important things is times. People get used to things at certain times. They go to gym. They do things at certain times. They go to the internet at certain times. They read their friends' WhatsApp notes at certain times. Try and change their schedules. Don't do anything as you go into the investigation phase and prior to it and afterwards, change everything around. Come in late, leave early, do different things, use different systems. They must not recognize you as you. Names and places are very important to drop information where it doesn't exist. Because each time you do that, it's like a false trail that someone who's tracking you ends up going down that road to try and find out more about it. So one of the things that is useful to do with a false trail is you are doing a story about finance in Northwest Province, or farmers and how they're dealing with workers, but you're actually not, you're doing wildlife trail, looking for, forensic trail for some people who are selling a CITES listed creature overseas. You don't want to walk around telling people you're doing that, obviously. So names and places change, and the need-to-know basis is important here. So I'm always, when I'm doing work where it implies that I need to have some confidentiality burnt into this, I'm never doing the story that it looks like I'm doing. I'm doing something else, and I stick to it, and it intersects, and you become less of a threat. So they leave you alone more. They figure out, oh, he's just some stupid Mlungu doing a story about, Catholic Church in Mpumalanga. You know what I mean? So, and you let them think that people must see you as like a friendly kind of bumpkin, easygoing. You're not super clever, glinting eyeballs, and you adopt your poker face, friendly, digital external persona. That's a technique that I advise you to build up over time. All of these things I would never say these things to a normal journalist, but these investigators are different. You and I are different about this. We're not messing around. Someone wants to kill us at some point, and they're going to get to you through your families. So you don't want to expose everyone around you to the dangers. So you must start creating these false trails, and do it mischievously, but not, not in a dangerous way. But you do it so consistently that the people who don't know you well enough don't know what's going on, and the people who do know you well enough know that it's nothing to worry about. Then, of course, burner devices, which we always use. One of the fundamental tips about false trails is your phone is a location device. I was explaining to you at the start of the session that we have little boxes that can track your phone. They can track your SMSs, they can intercept your calls. They are now 100,000 Rand, and a lot of people use these things in the same way that they use the devices that can block cell phone signals at union meetings, for example. Some companies have it built into their systems now in boardrooms, that no signal can get in and out of there. Those things used to be very expensive. They're quite cheap now in Rands. So you leave your phone somewhere. So someone thinks that, oh, Desmond's in Cape Town. Meanwhile, I'm no longer in Cape Town. I have another phone, which is not trackable. It's an old-fashioned thing. It's not trackable in the same way as my, super iPhone, maybe, to someone who can find my signal from the phone, because the phone sends a signal off all the time. And voila, I pop up in Durban. That buys you time for someone who may be going that far to track you on a phone. It's not a lot of us. I know a lot of people on this call probably think they're being tracked, but most of you are not like this. But as soon as you go into that place where you're going to investigate organized crime of any sort, these people are now very, very complex. They've got hackers that they mainly operating digitally these days. It's not just someone with a baseball bat down the road who's, high on tick. This is a person who's making millions of dollars, working with international agencies, laundering tens of millions of dollars in cash through South Africa and other Southern African countries. They are high. They've got really good hackers working for them. So they are going to be tracking your phone. They are going to be sending you strange phishing messages. So understand that they're also not very smart, because they're greedy. They're classic criminals. So if you give them enough to chew on, they happily chew in the corner over there. Meanwhile, you're actually busy with something else. So you're always creating this false flag, false flag, false flag. Yes, when they eventually catch you, if God forbid, and drag you out of your car, because you broke one of the rules and you kept going to gym at the same time of the day, because that's where they're going to get you, is when you're at your house, coming in and out of your house, out of your car, in and out of your car. Most criminals hit their targets in cars, and you can just do your checks on that. So you and I are very exposed if we stick to schedules and they know our car. So you're always creating this false trail digitally. Any questions? There's a message here. Apparently, Sean, you've reached the recording limit for your plan.
Yes, I've seen that. Thank you so much, Desmond. Yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions. I haven't seen anyone raise their hand during your presentation, but if anyone was waiting, now is the time. Ferial, I see you've switched on your camera. Is that an indication that you have one or many questions?
I just wanted to say thank you. That was extremely useful, Des. Is there any way of checking if your phone is being hacked or followed? Huh?
Yeah, you can go to the apps and you can just see which apps are using the most data, and you'll see if something sticks out, especially WhatsApp. WhatsApp uses an awful lot of data. So again, I don't know if you use an iOS or what device, but if you go to YouTube, search how do I check data use on my phone, or just go online. And then that thing that's using a lot of data, what I've done is I turn them off. So I'll turn off WhatsApp. So that's the one way. The second way is the phone gets very hot, but it's deceptive, because mobile phones these days get very hot, just the way that the operating systems work and the large screens and the batteries. Unfortunately, they do heat up a lot. So normally what I do is reboot my phone. If it's still getting very hot, those are the two ways, Ferrell, mainly. There's a third way. You can send your phone to Canadians who've got a whole task force, and I'll send you the link to them, but then it's a schlep because your phone goes all the way overseas without a battery, by the way. It's illegal to send with a battery. It comes back and they tell you it's infected, which you kind of knew. My logic is it's going to be infected. Some way or another, someone's going to get to me. And the more important I am, the more they're going to do this. So what I advise you to do is factory reset your phone regularly. Yes, it's a schlep. So don't use your phone as a full-on entertainment device. Use it as a two-way radio mechanism and a storage capacity and a camera. Think of it like that. So you put WhatsApp and Signal on it again. Don't put Facebook on it.
Okay.
Just go to Facebook on browser. Do not reduce apps on your phone. This app madness has got to stop. I mean, I don't even have the Guardian app on my phone. I go to the Guardian website, right? Because it's there. So get off the apps, put a handful on. When your phone starts heating up, and I know that you've got a really important series of investigations coming, they're going to go after you and they're going to get into that phone of yours through people who've clicked on something and they link to you and so on and so on. Once you factory reset that phone, that hacking, that software is gone. It's impossible for malware to exist on your phone after a factory reset. It's the only secure method.
Okay.
And most people don't do it because you know what you've got to do? You've got to back up your 900 years of photographs.
Photos.
And you think, I don't want to lose my photographs. So do what we do, put it in the cloud. Yes, you're going to have to spend, what is it, $80 to $100 a month through Apple, 169 for cloud service of 200 gigs, whatever it is. But if you and I at this level of investigations, we can afford that because it's peace of mind. And then you delete, factory reset the phone. Your photos are safe. Once your phone comes back to life, your Android system or your iPhone system automatically connects you to everything that's legal. And then you get everything back. An hour later, you breathe a sigh of relief. The malware is gone. That's the only way. So my advice to you, as you go to, as the risk component thing here, as you get more and more into serious stories, factory reset your phone more regularly. Just have it as like, it's like spring cleaning. It's like washing your clothes. You know, we've got to slow down, get situationally aware and go, okay, that's as clean as I can get it. It'll drive the hackers and people trying to get you nuts because they've got to do it all over again. And you see, it's time. You're buying yourself time.
Got it. Can I ask one more thing, Des, please? I've got all my Joburg docs on Google Drive, and I'm hear you saying that's not a good idea.
No. So, I mean, I use Google Docs all the time for the company, but there's some things we don't use it for. So if it's mission critical stuff and it's interacting with bunches of people, it's normal. Even reports, and we're designing reports for people and whatnot, that's fine. But when it starts getting to the spreadsheet of money that's moved from point A to point B, no. That's where I suggest to you get your device that's off the internet, transfer the information onto that device, and then only you must know where it is. The backup system that we use, that I've used over the years, is I put information about where that can be found in an envelope, and I give it to someone I can trust. And I say, if something happens to me, this is how you get into that device. This is where it is. And this is more likely who's trying to knock me off. And no one must know that but you. No one. They must not even know that you've done it. Because it's going to irritate you. It's going to be slow. It's going to, the authenticator thing, every time I do something that opens in my phone, it takes my staff say, I need this now. And then my authenticator switches into gear. I say, give me 30 seconds. It's 30 seconds of your life. But I know that no one else is accessing that data and can access it without that interaction with me and that number. So you buy peace of mind. Each act is buying a peace of mind, and you'll sleep a lot better.
All right, got it. Thank you. Thanks, Des.
Pleasure. I don't know when the session is supposed to end. Is it now?
Yes, it's in now, but if you would allow, I would also have a question about sharing so databases and things of the sort. How does one work in an environment in which, even for example, let's say our journalists are working on the same story in different countries and they're 4 or 5 or whatever. How do they then create a unified platform when the only platform they can use is online to actually get everything together and sort through everything? And so what do they do in that case?
Okay, so that's the thing that we're grappling with, isn't it? So you buy SharePoint from Microsoft. That's the one solution. Yes, they can be hacked, but they have a much higher encryption level and a responsibility ethos than Google Docs. So that's an unfortunate fact. That's 80 Rand per user per month. Okay, that's not a lot of money. So you've got to, that's an escalation of security. However, if someone shares information on a broken mobile that has infection, the bad player gets into your database. So the files that you share, you have password protect inside SharePoint, and then you send the codes to everyone on Signal. So you have a redundant system of communicating this. Those who are irritated by it, just tell them, okay, I'm going to access your bank tomorrow and take the money out of your bank. If it's data that's not that important, that's public, that's different. You take the chance. But if it's stuff that has a significant effect on nation state or organized crime or even corporate level corruption and so on, then you got to buy the service that protects you. And so it's SharePoint. And it's just old-fashioned, isn't it? It's simple SharePoint. Or you can use the other technique, but this is more clumsy. And you're talking about sharing information from a central zone, right? And so what I do, or what we advise people to do, is to use DHL all the time. Because DHL is, again, it's an international medium and it's protected by all sorts of international laws. So the post office doesn't work so well anymore. So you can store the information on a drive of some sort and send it via DHL. They have some issues with crossing borders sometimes with some of the drives. So the third option is you print out the material and then you scan it somewhere else and you load it into a central point. So there's someone collating it at a central point, and then you share it using an old-fashioned postal system idea. So but that's a high risk. Okay, lower risk is that if it's public information and you're sharing, you can right-click, protect with password, send the password via Signal. You can get file sharing zones, but I'm trying to avoid them because they're all in dollars, and the rand is, our currency is in Southern Africa against the dollar. So every time in the old days we used to have file drop or doc protect and so on and so on. But you go there now and it's $20 per user per month, and you have what, 10 or 15 researchers. That starts getting pretty expensive quite quickly. And then someone's got to manage the credit card payment. So you've got to have a credit card attached to it. So my advice is use most people have got 365, use SharePoint. It protects at a higher level. If it's really important, life and death, take the hard copy, Postnet, DHL, pick it up, open the package, transfer that data to the local device. It's off the internet. Repeat.
All right.
All right. But that's extremely dangerous level stuff. I must stress, you've got to be dealing with, nation state or serious criminals before you go that far. But that will save you, and more importantly for me and us on this call, I hope, our sources. It's going to protect your source.
Mm-hmm. We have a few questions, Desmond, if that's okay, in the chat.
Of course.
We have Bernard's asking, he says, I recently went to Zimbabwe and network was a challenge. I wanted to share my photos and some information with someone in South Africa. How can I protect my information in such circumstances? And maybe also in the same breath, is it safe to store or archive my sensitive documents in my email with national domain? Like here, this is Simon is in Tanzania, so it has .tz. No,
it's not safe, because the nation states are accessing our information based on a need to know. So if they think you're a danger to their security and their power, I mean, there's a long list of companies. I'll send you, if you want someone to talk to me offline, I'll explain this to you. If you think it's just, you know, drama queen stuff going on here, I'll explain this to you about how nation states are buying software from each other at a very high level. The Americans, the Chinese, everyone basically is playing in this field based on a threat. So if they think that you have an archive of sensitive documents, and you have a TZ, theoretically, they have a right in some of these countries to access the data on those servers. So if you're doing that, create the partition idea or split it up or give it another name, call it party list or something, and then lock it. Give them two options. So you give the data, you know, important information, sources, and then you create a long list of false people. And then you hide it, the other stuff in some other way. You put it on a drive and you post it to your friends. So one of these little disposable drives, you put it into a little parcel. You send it to our DHL. It's going to cost you 60, 100, 150 Rand. But that's someone's life in that little thing in the envelope. You've just saved their life. It's nothing, right? It's nothing compared to that. They pick it up. Yes, it takes 2 to 4 days. So it's not instant gratification. Remember, I said to you, everything we're talking about here is time. You takes time, but you're buying yourself time. And you're buying yourself much more than that in the end. So that's how I would do it from state to state. I knew James Foley, and I was working with him and trying to get Anton Hamel located in Libya when he disappeared years ago. And James Foley was embedded with the Marines, and IS found the pictures in iCloud after they tortured him for his password on his iPhone. And they found his pictures of him embedded with the Marines, and, you know, one day they chopped his head off. So they will get to that information if it's digital, the bad players. If it's not accessible, because it's not digital, that's your ultimate protection. So you've taken it off, the cycle of internet, Wi-Fi, blah, 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 and you put it somewhere else. A tiny percentage of us are doing that. And that's the saving grace of your source and your entire story, maybe. So if it's going to take you longer, it's going to cost a bit more money, but you're going to sleep easier. There's no ways they can get to it after that. God forbid they taught you for your password and it's not even on your phone. No, you've got other pictures on your phone. So the photos and information sharing thing has always been difficult for us. And that's an example of James. He was at an internet cafe when he was eventually caught in Syria. And he spent too long at the internet cafe and trying to upload his pictures to his company in America. So 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes rules, like we all know in the field, 10, 15 minutes, move. And so the photographs are always an information a problem. So what I try and do is I pretend to use one device, but I'm using two. So I have a GoPro, it's this size. It shoots nice pictures, not so much at night, but no one sees it in my hand. They come from my phone, they don't have my GoPros in my pocket. You take this mini card out, put it in an envelope, send it to South Africa. Yeah, the mini cards, you know, they cost 1.5, 1.7 for these things. The GoPro secondhand one is $4 grand. $4 grand versus a life, you know. So get used to redundancies, mixing up your technologies, using old school, new school, all the time, back and forth, back and forth. That's my advice to you in Zim in particular. I've done work there and it's really hard, as we know. And it's not, you know, you can't, you know, it's not for amateurs. So, you know, all honor to you, Bernard. Good luck. And then, of course, you have pictures on your phone. So when they do come and knock on your door and drag you away, you say, they're the pictures. You don't have nothing. Remember, I said to you, red flag. Nothing is a red flag. If you don't have something there, they're like, where are your pictures? So you have pictures, but just not the ones that are really important.
Okay, before we let Desmond go, are there any other questions, anything else that you would maybe want clarity on, especially for our participants? And then I also had one question, Desmond, you mentioned earlier about two-factor authentication and the importance thereof. And WhatsApp tells us all the time that we have two-factor authentication, but then you then said WhatsApp's not so great. So how do we determine how useful this two-factor authentication is when, especially in, you've said Signal is the point of communication that the journalist should use, especially for sensitive matters. But what about WhatsApp? WhatsApp says tells us that all our conversations are end-to-end encrypted and no one can ever see and know. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
It's true. The problem is there's something called Pegasus software that as a country you can buy that can read your WhatsApp messages, that intercepts those encrypted messages. If you've got $200,000, which is the starting price, as a country, you can buy the software that will read your WhatsApp. But they only sell apparently to nation states. So the Saudi Arabians used it to intercept Khashoggi's WhatsApp messages. And you know what happened to him in the Turkish embassy? If you don't, it involved an automatic meat slicer. All right. So again, those who think that this is just theatricals, please do send me a message and I'll send you all sorts of information about this. And it's not speculation. All right. So I use WhatsApp on purpose to shake the tree sometimes. If I think that someone's out and maybe on my phone or intercepted my friend's WhatsApp messages, then I use it. I use WhatsApp. I say, great, let's talk, you know. I mean, knowing that I'm not going to talk anything serious about anything on this device. I'm going to use it. I use it to phone my children. Right, someone's going to hack that and say he's talking about someone's birthday. You know what I mean? But if we start talking seriously about training second steps, then we go straight to Signal. And most of that, I don't need to know this stuff from what you guys are doing. So the fewer the people know anything about what you're doing, the better. And then you have backup. So you have some alarm system built into your comms, WhatsApp or whatever, that someone knows you're in deep trouble. So you just send a message, and that's a trigger mechanism for someone to just, send the hounds to look for you. So that's my long answer. It's not safe, depending on your level. For me and you exchanging WhatsApps is very safe. But if I'm going to go after the Zimbabwean government and its actions with diamonds and the Chinese, get ready. Your WhatsApp's going to get hacked.
Yeah, I would expect that. Okay, thank you so much. I don't see any other questions, so I'm assuming that everybody is super comfortable and now knows how to remain safe forever and ever. So we'd like to take this opportunity to just thank you very much, Des. I think you've given us a lot to chew on, and our journalists a lot of useful tips. As I said, this will be available online. So we will put it on our YouTube channel. So if anybody wants to go back to it, they can always do that. And also, I'm not sure if you're checking the chat, but a lot of people are saying thank you very much, Des. They appreciate it and they learned a lot today. So yeah, I don't know if, Anton, you want to say anything else before we close off for the day, or if we can call it a day. Just give him a second to unmute.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you very much. That was really, I think, extremely helpful. I reiterate that if you need a private consultation on a safe channel, let us know and we can arrange that hopefully with Desmond. But please also keep in touch with us if you have safety issues, safety concerns. It's best we know about them and we discuss how to deal with them. If you need legal support, please let us know and we'll do what we can. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks everyone.